Hard hat's all about showing up to play hard, doing what it takes to win.
If you want to cement legacy, win another.
He's your third center.
You don't want to pump him up too much, but it's hard not to.
This is maybe the most I've ever agreed with you.
Hey, Bobby Manning here. Welcome to a Tuesday edition of the Garden Report. Back at it with Michael Pina, who we're thrilled to have back here on the Garden Report. Welcome in, sir. It's been an interesting summer. Good, man. How are you? It's been an interesting summer, and been listening to you, reading you on the Celtics here, and I think not surprising that you're a little pessimistic about what's going on, just considering the roster here. But I feel like Celtics fans, people around the team, are just holding out hope that they'll figure it out this year. And there's some pieces that make you think that that's possible, but there's also some holes on the team where you go, oof, how are they going to figure that out? So they got 14 players right now. Feels like most of their work's done. Maybe another move or two in the camp early in the season or something like that. But this is pretty much the roster. And it's Jaylen, it's Peyton, Derek, Sam Hauser, and they'll figure it out as they go at center. Even Brad Stevens said that.
Yeah. I mean, I'll just throw it back to you. When you say like they'll be able to people are holding out hope that they'll kind of figure things out. Like, what does that even mean in your interpretation? Because it's like, is that making the playoffs as a top 6 seed? Is it making the play-in and then busting your way into the playoffs with momentum? Is it, I don't know. I guess that's like is it like winning the champ? Like, what is the best case scenario here in your opinion?
I think we can agree there's zero chance of a championship.
Yes.
I think that's something we can settle on. Playoffs definitely in play. I was ranking the teams in the East the other day, and there's like this 5-team sandwich that I can't figure out of the Bucks, Philly, Indy, of course, too, who's in a similar situation as Boston here. And then I'd probably throw, I don't know, like Chicago and some of those teams in that mix too. Although I think I'd put like Chicago and Toronto below Boston at this point. So, I mean, that's going to effectively decide those 5 teams right there. I think I'm forgetting one. Who's going to be 6 and who's going to be in that play-in mix 10 and then 11 after that. I guess you can throw Detroit and Atlanta into that mix too, but I'm higher on them going into this year. Miami's the other team I'd put in that sandwich there. So that's 6 through 10 right there. And obviously, if you're 6, you're in. And if you're 10, you're probably going back into the lottery somehow, some way. So a lot of that's going to be health, right? Like who's healthy out of that group, how things go, what moves those teams make, and where those teams decide to go. And I think that's the most interesting thing with the Celtics is when you look at the roster, are they even desiring being in the middle of the playoff mix this year? Like, is that even something they want? Or are they saying, if we fall into the lottery this year, we don't mind?
I think that you hit it right on the head right there. My personal reasons for pessimism are simply looking at the actions of the front office this summer. And that's less about the salary cutting, which was expected with Kristaps Porzingis and Drew Holiday. Those are the 2 big names and the big salaries that went out the door and cost-cutting moves to try to, duck the second apron. But it's also just about the type of talent that they brought in and just the pieces that they, how they've tried to build the front court in particular is something that I kind of can't wrap my head around. Like, knowing how smart the front office is, like, they would never put together a front court like this if they wanted to win basketball games. So it's like, it's I don't mean to be like mean or anything, but it's just like so much unproven talent and players who were not in NBA rotations last season. And so for me, it's like, I'm just like, their actions really speak volumes to me. And when you consider that their payroll is still pretty exorbitant, I would expect them to be cutting more salary before the season is over. They're $17.6 million, I believe, over the luxury tax right now, with one empty roster spot and 2 non-guaranteed contracts. I would really be shocked if they didn't cut that much money in the months ahead to get under the luxury tax. It's possible. I mean, right now they're under the second apron, which is great and allows some flexibility. But I believe like just the repeater tax payment that they'd have to make for a team that, as we said, has a 0% chance of winning the championship is $70.7 million. That's just the luxury tax payment because they're in the repeater, $70.7 million. And it's just silly, in my opinion, to pay that for a team that does not have its best player, does not have its franchise player, one of the best players in the NBA, in Jayson Tatum, who is probably going to miss the entire season and should miss the entire season after rupturing his Achilles against the New York Knicks. And so this is just a prime opportunity, I think, to take a step back as an organization and develop the young players that you do have on your roster and try to get a prime asset in the lottery. And I just don't think there's any shame in doing that. I think it's a shrewd long-term move for the organization and one that they're probably looking at. And it would be more preferable, I think, than getting into the play-in and getting into the first round of the playoffs and playing the Cleveland Cavaliers or the Orlando
Knicks
or the New York Knicks and just stomped. Like that just in this situation, it makes no sense to do that. So for me, like they should be bad. They look like they're going to be bad, and it's smart to be bad.
Yeah, and I could see that. Now the lottery game's precarious, as we've seen in numerous cases since they changed the odds. So that's the challenge there. But they're not going to be Brooklyn, Charlotte, Washington bad. So you're not going to get down in like that 14% camp down there. Utah's obviously going to be there on the west side. Like there's 4 teams that are pretty firmly in like the top echelon lottery status, but you don't necessarily have to be there to get the top pick as we saw last year.
Right.
The
Exactly.
top 3 teams winning that year, at least trying to compete. And, that's where I'm at. Like, they didn't completely gut the roster to where they're going full tank mode here. Like, I do think there's at least a mindset of being competitive going into this year, at least an illusion of that. And then, you get an injury or two with this roster and this depth, and you might be down in that bottom 5, 6 group of teams there. And so that's the thing with this group. Like, there's definitely not a high ceiling, and there's definitely a pretty low floor that they can reach, given where the roster's at right now. And you mentioned the offseason and the flow of events. You're optimistic that they can try to figure something out while offloading some salary there. And I thought the Holiday trade was a good example of that. Like, he goes out, they had to get off that contract. It did a pretty good job of it. Simon's coming back. You're like, all right, Simon's it's a rotation player, guy that can fit into your backcourt pretty quickly there and do some things, good fit for the system. So they make that trade, and it's like, okay, it's a good start, surprising start. I thought it'd be much tougher, much more difficult to trade Holiday than that. They don't even have to give up a pick in that deal. So good start. Then Porzingis goes, and you get George Niang back, and it's like, all right, that wasn't great, but they saved a lot of money. They had to do it. There's $200 million off the tax. Then draft night comes around, and it's like, okay, can they fill some holes with this pick? And they go Hugo Gonzalez, who's 19 and barely played in Madrid last year. And that was the moment where I was like, all right, they might be making a long play this offseason. Because I was of the mindset, like, all right, you got Jaylen, you got some of these pieces still. Can you try to remain competitive in this weak conference? And then when they did that, I was like, all right. And then they trade back in the second round for a couple 2-ways when there were some centers there that they could go and grab. And then all 3 of their rotation centers go out the door in free agency alongside that Porzingis trade. And then they signed Luka Garza, who was in the G League pretty much to start his career, to fill in that spot. And at that point, it was very clear what was going on here.
Right. So I just, for everything that you outlined, like I look at like it to honestly, like I've said this before in some other places recently, but when I look at the roster of if you look at the Charlotte Hornets roster and you stack it next to this Boston Celtics roster,
I'm not going that far.
it is really close in terms of 1 through 15 talent.
The center thing's the big thing. Yeah.
I mean, Charlotte's front court is like no shakes and possibly even worse than Boston's. But like LaMelo Ball, Brandon Miller, Con Knippel, like actually like young, exciting
And they went and got
players.
Kalkbrenner, who I like.
Sure, who would probably like start or definitely be in Boston's rotation.
Yeah.
Next season. And like they have Colin Sexton would be how, like, I don't know how many Celtics fans have watched Colin Sexton over the past few seasons.
He had a great game against them in Utah.
Sure, he's like a pretty good player. And he would be what, like the third or fourth best player on Boston's roster, to be honest with you. I mean, like, throw it up with Peyton Pritchard versus Colin Sexton. I don't know who's better, but I haven't thought too deeply about it. But like, that's a conversation. So I just say that to like put in perspective how bad this could go for Boston. The Celtics obviously have a fantastic coaching staff. They have a style of play offensively that they should still be able to they should be able to like do a karaoke version of it. Best case scenario, and like a top 10 offense, if they really wanted to do that, is technically feasible because the players that they brought in they can all shoot threes really, and that's kind of what their skill is. Now the issue is you take such a dramatic hit on the defensive end with those players that it's really hard to have a functioning defense that's even close to like top 20, I feel like, with these players. So if they're getting real minutes, I mean, where's the rim protection? Where's the rebounding? Even just talking offensively, the shot creation for the threes, like losing Jayson Tatum. I think this is a season where people who, if you still don't think he's one of the 5 best players on the planet, 5 or 6 best players, like this will put all that to bed when you watch the Celtics team like struggle on a night-to-night basis. Because his responsibilities as the focal point of the defense's game plan every single night and him making that look easy versus what Jaylen Brown will have to shoulder is just, I just don't see it. And I don't know if I'm being a little too harsh on Jaylen. I just don't think that he can handle those playmaking responsibilities, that ball handling, that type of usage. In an efficient manner, because I mean, he hasn't really been super efficient in the role that he has deemed sacrificial the past few years. So there's a lot of reasons why I just don't think they'll be very good. And I think that that's actually like a positive for the organization going forward.
Could be. Definitely could be. I want to talk about Jaylen, but first I want to give a shout out here to Prize Picks. Head over there. Still a great time this summer, even football is coming up, but before that happens, still a lot going on over there on Prize Picks. Best place to turn your sports knowledge into cash. With millions of members, they've made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. Just pick more or less than at least 2 players to win a shot to win up to 2,000 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. Again, you can mix and match player projections from different sports. There's women's basketball going on right now. Ton of stars playing on the court there. Baseball going on as well. I'll be over at Fenway today. And you can check out the flex play on Friday, which means you can still cash out even if your lineup isn't perfect. So, throw Asia Wilson in there, throw Otani in there. That's my go-to. And it's a really easy app to use to create a lineup. All you have to do, again, is pick more or less on a few player stats: points, assists, rebounds, home runs, hits, steals, and all that's available over there. I like just going on the app to see they think any player is going to do on any given night. So sign up today and get 50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need a win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed with the code CLNS. Again, sign up today, use the code CLNS and get 50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need a win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. A lot of great promotions over there. Today's Taco Tuesday. Discount on player projections up to 25% to provide even more value for your lineup. So again, check it out. Code CLNS over on Prize Picks. Run your game. So Jaylen, I mean, this is an opportunity for him, right? This is something he's wanted. This is a challenge I think that he's desired and talked about even this offseason. So I wish he was in a better position to actually have a supporting cast around him that would set him up to succeed in this spot. I definitely envision a scenario where they at least keep Porzingis to start the year, and those two have some good chemistry, and that's how they make it work there. But to me, I keep going back to the center thing because it's a positionless game now, but there's still so much that centers do, especially on this team. When you add Horford and guys who have been here and such a great defensive stature too, and those guys are doing a lot of rim protection and switching and different things that have made this a top defense, going back to Brad Stevens effectively. And so now you take that away, and then offensively, like, are guys screening in the right spots? Are guys able to pull players away from Jaylen in the pick and roll? Like, are guys going to be able to make it easier for him if he wants to play off ball? Like, there's so much that's going to be challenging here, on top of the fact that he's coming off meniscus surgery. I guess it was just a partial tear and not a super significant one. He's already back on the floor training and all that, and he'll be more than good to go by training camp here. But still, didn't look like himself in the playoffs and had a lot of trouble with that injury last year. So it'll be interesting to see how he comes off of that. But, I mean, he definitely faces an uphill battle to be successful this year, but he's their hope of staying above water, at least to start the year.
Yeah, look, he's coming off his third straight All-Star season. Hasn't made All-NBA, didn't make All-NBA the past 2 years. Did have a career high assist rate last year with pretty much no bump up in turnover percentage, which is
the turnover thing's been a good place since that awful East Finals Game 7 showing.
Yeah, and I thought that game 5 of the second
maybe
round,
the best game of his career.
Yeah, I thought that. Certainly in a spot like that where, your back's against the wall, you're at home, and I thought that they were going to win that game anyway, but given the circumstances of Tatum's injury and just I could imagine just how deflating it was as an organization, as a team, for him to come out and play that well on both ends. And I thought, like, even just his defense on Jalen Brunson after Brunson's game 4, which was Brunson's game 4 was one of the best individual offensive shot making performances I've ever seen in person. So for him to play defense that way, and then also just the double-digit assists, and his decision making was really on point. That was a great game. He followed that up though with a total dud, fouling out in Madison Square Garden in game
7
6.
turnovers, I think, in that game too.
Yeah, that was a really tough performance for everyone on the team. But when you're the best player on the team, ostensibly, you would want to show up a little bit more in a series that at that point still felt honestly winnable for Boston. It wasn't a foregone conclusion that they would get blown out in game 6 and go home like that. And I just, this should be, I guess, framed as a fantastic opportunity for Jaylen Brown to assume a greater role, to have the ball in his hands a lot more, to orchestrate offense, to set up teammates, to make life easier for everyone around him. And I think that there's just so much that goes into that is diametrically opposed to everything that has come before in his career, and everything that kind of makes him so special. For me, I think one of the reasons he is an all-star player is he's he can hit some of the toughest shots in basketball. Mid-range, contested, off the dribble, like off balance. That's like a strength of his. Isolation when, he's in space and he's able to go against maybe the second or third best perimeter defender on the other team. He's like a matchup nightmare. He's super strong, super fast, super athletic. In transition, he's, for one of the slower teams in basketball last season, he is...
They had a weird transition year for sure.
Yes, absolutely. And I think he was still very effective in the open floor, when the team is shorthanded going up against, when he crosses half court and there's, maybe one other Celtic with him, but there's like 3 or 4 defenders in like backpedaling to protect the basket. Like, he can put it on the deck and go to the rim and make something happen. Like, and that is like putting pressure on the defense is something that he's very good at. But like in this other role where he has to kind of downshift and play a slower game and, continuously read defensive rotations and understand that everything is geared to slow him down and to prevent him from shooting. That's just a huge mental adjustment that I don't want to, again, be like overly harsh, but I can't believe that will happen in a successful way until I see it, because I haven't seen it yet in his career for a sustained stretch. What are your thoughts on that? Am I being too hard on him?
Yeah, they're gonna have problems in the half court, so I think they need to speed it up, and that's something Brad Stevens said right after the season. I think we all watched it in the Knicks series in particular, and I know you covered that series. They grinded to a halt at times offensively with the pace there, and it is an opportunity, I think, because Jaylen wants to play fast, and I think Tatum, for all the great things you said there, the big knock I have on him is that he's too methodical and just plays too slow sometimes, and I think that rubbed off on the team for a lot of last year. I think that was one of the things that was more frustrating last season, as good as they were and as talented as they were. And, we still look back at last season and it was such a disappointment. Like, I know Tatum goes down and I feel like they got shielded from a lot of the criticism for how that series went because of that. And probably rightfully so, because it's just such a dramatic and devastating moment for everybody involved. But I mean, they had lost that series before Tatum went down, and the pace was a big reason for that. I thought some defensive lapses through that series were really tough to watch. And then obviously just managing the leads in the first 2 games there. So you got to speed it up this year. I don't think it's going to be possible to have a great offense without doing that. Unfortunately, again, Jaylen loves to play fast. Pritchard loves to play fast. And he's a guy, beyond the stuff we're talking about with Jaylen here, I think Pritchard's in a great spot to have a massive year. And it'll be interesting, right, for both those guys, because they're going to be the primary creators. I think Pritchard's going to start. There's a big debate about that among the fan base right now. I don't even know if Anthony Simons is going to be here, so we'll see if he makes it to camp or the start of the season. I think there's a case, I guess, to balance the lineups a little bit and have Simons start, but I'd start Pritchard. And both those guys, again, Pritchard coming off the bench, 6th man of the year, Jaylen playing next to Jayson, they've definitely benefited from playing off the gravity that Tatum has, and just guys coming off Jaylen and Pritchard and other players to be able to put extra attention on Tatum. Finals was certainly the story of that a couple of years ago. But how do Jaylen, Pritchard handle double teams? Teams really scheming up to stop them every night, putting extra attention on them. Like, that's going to be probably the whole story and how they translate to this season. And if they're able, Jaylen's able to pass out a lot of that stuff, if Pritchard's able to work around some of the ways defense is going to try to stop him, they could, like you said, have a functional top 10 offense and try to win some games that way and hover around 500 this year, maybe even a little bit better. But if they struggle with translating to extra attention, that's where it could get ugly.
Yeah, I think just talking about Pritchard in particular, I mean, last year he was one of the most efficient players at his position. Obviously won 6th man of the year, shot the hell out of the ball.
And
In
he's had
a
some massive games when he's gotten more minutes and started and put, had extra responsibility put on his shoulders. So I'm super intrigued by him. He's almost more intriguing than Jaylen going into this year because we haven't seen him in a starting 30-minute a night role like this.
Yeah, I think, some of those games, as you know, were like in
End of the year.
March and they're against opposing scrub units. And, it's not serious basketball relative to most of the regular season with standings decided, etc. But no, I think like he's definitely a very good player, no doubt about it. Did not win Sixth Man of the Year on a fluke. Made the most of his opportunity last year. And I think when you talk about, an increase in responsibility, a mushrooming of his role, like he needs to be more of a, like, not pass first point guard, but setting guys up is going to be a huge part of what he has to do on the court now. And that is something that we have not seen from him in his career. He's like a very low assist rate, low turnover. He's thinking about shooting when he touches the ball, when he catches it off on a pass. Can he be a, primary pick and roll playmaker for certain possessions? Like, I don't know. This is something that I'll be curious to see. I think he's really good. I also think that when you go into a game and that Peyton Pritchard is going to be the opposing starting point guard, your defensive strategy and your defensive mindset changes as an opposition. That maybe, defenses couldn't just like blitz Peyton Pritchard last year. You know what I mean? Like that's just not an option. So now this year, if he runs, say, like a pick and pop with Luka Garza, or Xavier Tillman is the center.
I forgot about Tillman the other day when I was sacking up the centers.
Yeah. I think blitzes will happen a lot more off the screen, just more aggressive coverages, and how he handles that over and over and over and over again will be really interesting. How will he handle bigger defenders, better defenders? Like, I'm just throwing this out there, but like you go up against the New Orleans Pelicans and they're like, all right, Herb Jones is going to guard Peyton Pritchard tonight. Because that's something that will happen because there's no Tatum, there's no Drew Holiday. It's just a totally different situation. And he will face way more attention. And I think that there is a lot to be said about how difficult that is on a night-to-night basis on an 82-game regular season. So yeah, I'll be curious to see how it goes. But if he is the starter, I think that there will be a lot of like pain that comes with that.
Yeah, and he has 50 games in his career of 30, 39 minutes. Again, you mentioned it, some shaky situations on the opposing side, but 17 a game in those spots, 4 rebounds a game, nearly 5 assists a game, shooting 50%, 42% from 3. So he's just had some great performances when he's had more responsibility. And that was the story of last year. He actually got to play a 6-man role and had an amazing season. Again, a lot of talent around him, definitely in a great role. I understand why people might want to see him stay in that role. And just have Simon start, and maybe it puts Pritchard in a better position to succeed. I don't know if you have a thought on that.
I think that he's the most natural point guard on the roster. I think you could have Derek White be your point guard.
Not opposed to that.
I think he can definitely do it. To me, again, it's just like that's what I would maybe do if I was like really trying to win games. And again, I don't think they should be. My starting backcourt would probably be Simons, White. I would have Brown at the 3, and then oh my God, like Kata's at the 5, and then Niang or Hauser.
Hauser.
I think you have to have either Hauser or Niang. But yeah, Hauser probably is the better option there, the better player. But yeah, I think that just in terms of like, if I'm not trying to win games and I'm just trying to, I want to preserve Derek White, to be honest. Like, I don't want to run Derek White into the ground. I don't want
It's
to
a
run.
consideration this year too, for sure.
Yeah, I don't. He's not super young. I don't want to run Jaylen Brown coming off knee surgery into the ground. I want everyone to be in tip-top shape for the 2026-2027 season. And that's kind of my mindset if I'm, ownership, front office, coaching staff, and I'm communicating that to my two most important players, who are Jaylen Brown and Derek White. And that's kind of how I'm rolling this year if I'm in charge.
Yeah, and I went and looked at it because I just want to see if those 5 guys had played together before. And they actually played together a decent amount last year because Celtics were mixing, matching lineups, doing a lot of experimenting during the year. So that's White, Pritchard, Hauser, Brown, Cada, which would be my choice just because of the continuity factor there. And who knows what's going to come off the bench after that. But those guys played 54 minutes last year, 13 games, 136 offensive rating. A lot of offensive rebounds for that group. I went and looked back at some of their minutes together, and they were just grabbing a lot of their own misses back. Pritchard was shooting 1 million shots with that group. And yeah, they put up a pretty good offensive number together, 67 effective field goal for that group. So they were able to play with some pace. They definitely ran in some of the clips I watched, but they gave up 140 defensive rating, and that's a negative 3.
Wait, did you say, is that 54 total minutes you said?
Yep.
Okay, so that's like one game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, not a lot to go off there, obviously, but I did find it interesting that they played together a little bit last year. And I think they played like 13 minutes together the year before that. So those guys have played together. Cade has been there. I think he deserves the starting spot. He had a pretty solid year last year. And Hauser, weird season for him, but still ended up shooting over 40%. I thought that was we'll get into some of the long-term stuff here, but I think what went underrated this offseason, especially with that Porzingis trade, is that you're probably going to be able to keep Hauser in the mix into the future. And I don't think that was a certain thing going into the summer. He was definitely a guy who could have been a salary dump, who could have had to go out the door here to shed some money. So getting off that Porzingis money almost in its entirety this year was big. I think he'll be good in Atlanta if he can stay on the floor, but it was just so uncertain by the end, especially with the illness stuff that hung over that series, that I understand their desire to get off of him and not even just take this into the year. So that saved them a little bit there. You still have Pritchard on a great contract. The Jaylen stuff's interesting. We can get into that in terms of the future of where this franchise is going here and how they're going to rebuild this roster. But let's say this year goes sideways. They're in the lottery. So you're going to have a lottery pick. You're going to have Jaylen back, Tatum back, hopefully in his old form. Pritchard's back for a little while. Hauser's signed long-term. So you definitely have some guys under contract. Even Cada's back for another year after that, but you have to figure out your center situation if you're going to try to compete the following season. I guess the sense is you can go out and use a mid-level on a center and just find a guy like Clippers did with Brook Lopez and a couple other teams were able to do this summer. I mean, the Pacers just found Jay Huff for free, effectively. So, like, you can find centers. But in terms of this becoming a championship roster again, like, is it Tatum coming back and the East being the East? Like, how does this team get back to this eventually?
Wow, that's a tough question. I don't think it's as easy as Tatum comes back and everything is back to normal, because you don't have Drew Holiday, who was incredibly valuable during the championship run in so many different ways, particularly in the playoffs. You don't have Kristaps Porzingis, who was amazing a couple of years ago and throughout some of last regular season before kind of falling apart mysteriously in the playoffs. And I think that was the biggest reason why they lost that Knicks series personally. Above everything was Porzingis just looking like a total shell of himself.
And they just kept playing him. It was a killer. Yeah,
that was tough. like game 4 was winnable back and forth, and playing Porzingis was kind of I think the mistake there.
In
that
key
game.
minutes of that game too, in the second half, he was out there just doing nothing.
Yeah. So those are two really good NBA players who have all-star pedigrees and like championship medal. So losing those two is really difficult. I mean, you have Tatum. You're kind of just assuming Tatum will be an all-NBA first team all-NBA player again, and who knows? I'm optimistic that he will be. But who knows there? And then you have Jaylen Brown, like kind of pushing 30 at that point, I think, right? He'll be 30 next season, like 2026, 27. Derek White will be 32. And, like, if those are your 3 best players, that's a good place to start. But
especially in the East.
Especially in the East, although like there are teams in the East that are like pretty respectable and I don't think are going anywhere when you're just talking about like the tippity top of the conference. Like you need depth. You need someone to hit on who's like, you need like Baylor Shireman to be good,
He had a rough summer league.
Yeah, I didn't watch any of Summer League, so that stinks. I saw Jordan Walsh get ejected after like 10 seconds.
Walsh had a good summer league. He's still sticking around. But yeah, there's not elite young talent here. There's no one. They had drafted guys and they had picked up young players that were flyers effectively. And I like Shireman. Like, he definitely had a higher pedigree than where he got picked. But it showed in year 1 that he just wasn't ready to go. Maybe that changes this year, but he played next to no NBA minutes last year. And now that's another guy, again, that's going to be playing a ton of minutes this year.
Yeah, he's also 25?
23, 24.
Oh, I thought he was
25.
Okay.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
He was 5 years in school. I forgot people do that now.
Yeah, he's not young. So like he's probably old. He's older than Anthony Edwards. I think that's true.
Older than Tatum.
Yeah, no. Sure. So yeah, I think that
he's older than Edwards. That's crazy.
Yeah. So I think like if you are trying to get back into this, you need like the best thing that you have going for you, I think, is your pick in this upcoming lottery. It's supposedly, I know nothing about the draft, but everyone who does says
the guy from Brockton.
Sure. This is an incredibly loaded draft at the top where there are several franchise-altering talents. And I think if you're the Celtics, like we've seen the Dallas Mavericks just leap up from 9 or 10 to 1. We saw the Atlanta Hawks the year before that leap up from 9 or 10, I can't remember, all the way to 1. You don't need to be you don't need to win 14 games to guarantee yourself a top pick. I think just like you can still be like semi-respectable and like not be shameful like the Utah Jazz were last year and get like a really good draft pick. That's like totally possible because of the flattened lottery odds. So I think either drafting a player who can come in and contribute right away and, maybe not look like an all-star in year 1, but be a role player year 1. And then kind of you gradually like year 2, year 3, Tatum's still under contract. Jaylen Brown's still
almost
under
how
contract.
Tatum started his career, right?
Exactly. And Jaylen Brown to a certain extent as well. And then, naturally you're mixing in this incredible talent in with more established superstars in a winning environment. I think that is one path. The other is to just like get a pretty good pick and obviously trade the pick for someone who is more established, who is, the NBA landscape changes overnight. So a year from now at the 2026 draft, I don't know what player will be looking to leave, looking to play for a different team based on, what happens in the playoffs this season, and who's super disappointed, who's, who wants to reset, who really wants a draft pick. All of that is really, really interesting. But I think that having that asset, regardless of how you use it, will be critical. I don't know how they will use it. And they have a lot of their own future picks. And I know Brad Stevens has said he wants to hold on to them and not use them to dump salary. We will see with regards to some of the second round picks. I think that it wouldn't shock me if those were attached in some type of deal to shed more money before the season is over, if need be. But they have a lot of trade assets, and it's tough. Like, becoming a champion is very difficult. They have I think the number one most difficult thing that you need, that's required, is Jayson Tatum. And just kind of how do you build out around there? I think like
his age, his contract, like that's still one thing they have going for them is Tatum Brown under contract for a while. They have a little bit of a window and a runway to rebuild, retool,
Right.
whatever you want to call it.
Right. Both are under contract through 2029, I believe. So that's like 4 more seasons, including this one. But I will say, like, the other path is to trade Jaylen Brown, which is like...
So that was out there to start this offseason. White even too, and I think he should be looped into this conversation to some degree because he's just enormously valuable. I don't know if you saw that Toronto offered 9 RJ Barrett and who knows what else for White. And I think Holiday might have been a possibility there too, but the Celtics wanted the expiring back and Simons. But they definitely got 9 RJ Barrett and possibly more offered that. But I think that was the centerpiece of the package there, and they decided not to go with that route. And I can understand that from White. I'm sure they got multiple first-round picks offered for White from a number of teams, but they decided to keep White around, keep Brown around. I don't know what they got offered for Brown. I can't imagine it was a ton, just because of the contract and who's actually in the market for Jaylen Brown. Maybe San Antonio might have been, but they seem to have no interest in moving number 2. I don't think 14 would have been enough. So I don't think anything ever got really close with Brown, but that was at least an enticing offer from Toronto for White.
Yeah, I think that I had not heard that. I would not do that if I were Boston.
I wouldn't either. I like Barrett, but not for Derek White.
He's fine. I think Derek White's like really special, and if you want to win at the highest levels, he is someone that you want on your team. And trading him, I always thought was like a real signal, because to me, he's been the second best player on the team for, I don't know, like at least 2 years, I would say.
He's perfect. Everyone wants to be Derek White, as we know.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah,
Ronnie, D'Lo.
Yes.
They wanted no, that was Holiday. They wanted Beal to be Holiday out in Phoenix.
Yeah. So yeah, I think like, again, you don't know this far out who will want Jaylen Brown in a year.
Let me just ask you this. Is it possible, you think, in this new CBA environment? I asked everybody this at Summer League and got a bunch of different answers. Is it possible to have 2 Supermax players, Brown, Tatum, and build a team around that in this new landscape? Or is it just going to end up being Brown, Tatum, and stuff?
I think it's possible. It's obviously very difficult. I mean, Tatum's making about 35% of the cap, and
Jaylen's way up there too.
Yeah, Jaylen's a little bit lower as it goes on, and the cap rises, but because I don't think he's on. Yeah, he's like 30. He's pretty much, I don't know, 33, 34 is the year. Like it ducks down a little bit, but it's between 30 and 35 throughout the life of his contract. So it's a lot. Yeah, it's tough. It's very difficult. You need to, again, like, that's why one of the first players I said was like, you need Baylor Shireman to be awesome. You know, like you need guys to hit, like your young players. You need, if you want to, I don't think the Indiana Pacers are necessarily like replicable in a lot of different ways. But like they had so much depth and players who were making, because they have two max players. They're not 35% of the cap, but Halliburton and Siakam are both on max
on
contracts.
A team that's much more financially limited too. Like they're not even a tax team, really.
No, and never have been.
Yeah.
And so it's possible, like absolutely. There's a lot of things you can control with regards to, your style of play and, coach, like the compatibility of those two players and how they elevate everyone else around them. Like all that matters. And I think Tatum's very special in that he can play with just about anyone, and he can handle the ball. He can play off the ball. He can set screens. He can come off screens. He's very, very special. He rebounds. He's got great size, like he can score isolation, post up, like he can do pretty much anything that you ask of him. So he's like a super special cornerstone. Jaylen Brown, I think less so. And I think he's obviously very good, and he has like just a fearlessness to him. And he's hit countless huge shots and is just so unafraid of the moment. And that is its own unquantifiable benefit in a player who's making that much money. But there's just a little inconsistency with him, and some of his shortcomings, in my opinion, don't necessarily accentuate those who are around him. And I think this is a season where some of those questions will have to be answered for everything that we've already talked about. But I think like you need everyone else to hit who is not making a lot of money. That's like kind of the key in the league right now. Like Peyton Pritchard on his contract is incredible. That's incredible value. Sam Hauser on his contract, that is incredible value.
Very good. Yeah.
But you need more of that, and you need size, and you need you need a lot of things. You need defensive versatility. You need multiple ball handlers. You need obviously a lot of 3-point shooting. I mean, one of the things that's lost on people when we talk about the Indiana Pacers, it was the third best shooting playoff team that won a conference finals. So the third best shooting finals team in the history of the NBA. And the first two were like the 17 Warriors and the 17 Cavaliers. And then you need shooting, like a lot of it. And that costs a lot of money. So if you can find it for cheap, that's how the front office makes its money. So we'll see. Like there's a lot of stuff that needs to be said that hasn't happened, and so many variables. And I think to answer your question, it is possible. It's just very, very difficult, and you need a lot of things to go your way.
Definitely. And I'm looking at the center list for next summer. It's not super compelling. Nurkic, Zach Collins. Make sure Robinson's out there, but I don't think they'll be able to afford him. Rob Williams. Mo Wagner. It's not a ton of options out there. Nick Richards, Andre Drummond, you get the idea at that point. So there's no straightforward path to answering that either there. And that's like, I would have kept Luke Cornett this summer. I would have really tried to do that despite the financial difficulties in doing so. Just to have something reliable there. Just to have a guy that can play with Tatum and play your system and all that for a couple more years, because that's going to be a tough one to answer. And I don't know. Does Al Horford come back after a year in Golden State? I don't know. They're gonna have to figure that out too. Last thing I got for you. How do you feel about the East going into this year? Obviously, there's a massive opportunity for a bunch of different teams with Pacers down, Celtics down. We talked about that little sandwich of teams too that's going to be trying to compete for seeding there at the back end. It seems like Cleveland has a golden opportunity here. The Knicks are going to be really good again. Who do you think is going to take control of this conference now with a couple of the teams that have dominated down with injuries?
Yeah, you mentioned Cleveland and New York, I think are really good. It's kind of finals or bust seasons for both of those organizations. I am extremely high on the Orlando Magic.
Me too.
Yeah.
Did you
I
watch that Celtics Magic series? I mean, they were up
Oh, yeah.
against it, and I thought they were so impressive. Like, they almost won both games at home. They were so physical. They held the Celtics to a ridiculous three-point percentage when no one could do that.
Yeah.
I love the coach. The offense is scary, though, because even after Banchero and Wagner got back, they were still could not put the ball in the basket.
Yeah, I mean, Corey Joseph was their point guard. They didn't have Jalen Suggs for basically the whole
Yep.
back half of the season.
Mo Wagner went down, who scored a lot of points for them.
Yeah, important player off the bench. He'll be back. I'm like Desmond Bain's number one fan. Desmond Bain's number
I
one
love
fan.
the trade. That trade got so criticized. If you're trying to win, you got to be aggressive. And they were overdue for trying to find a guy like that. And he's great. And I think he'll be so good in his role too, because it's not like defenses are going to be keying in on him. Like, they're still going to be keying in on Banchero and Wagner, and he'll be getting open threes off of that. And he's one of the best shooters in the league.
Yeah, literally one of the best shooters in the league. Movement, off the dribble. He's got like great footwork, step backs. Like, he's incredible. And he's also
I could see the Magic in the finals. I honestly could.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely possible. They're built to do it. I really like the Tyus Jones signing as well. Poor assist to turnover ratio basketball team for years. It's one of the reasons why their offense has always stunk. And adding Bane and adding Tyus Jones, I think, will do wonders for just everything on their offense. It's just a great offseason for them. Atlanta Hawks, you mentioned them with KP before. I'm intrigued. I think that I would not be shocked if they won the conference. I am not picking them, but that's a team that really prioritized three-point shooting and two-way versatility over the summer. And, you know, Nickeil Alexander-Walker was a great signing. He was probably like the best free agent, prototypical free agent available as a two-way wing. Great role player, adding Luke Kennard, who's like led the league in three-point shooting twice before. Obviously, adding KP at the 5 spot changes the whole dynamic of your basketball team when he's healthy. They get Jalen Johnson back, who I absolutely loved last year.
Yeah,
such a smart player, such an athletic, just like a beast of a player.
They
really
were floating around in that top 5 range in the East too before he got hurt, and they beat Boston twice in Boston. They had some impressive games early on.
Yeah, he had a triple-double in Boston in that win without Trae Young. He's incredible. So I think that those 4 are really good. And then I'll throw the Pistons in as like the little brother of that group.
I still like them.
Yeah.
I have them 5th.
Yeah, so do I. I don't think that they will win. I don't think they can win 3 playoff series. But I like their offseason, given their really unfortunate circumstances. I thought that they salvaged it and maybe even got better in a lot of ways. And I love Cade Cunningham and I love Asar Thompson so much. It's scary. I think he has like an all-star gear, not this year probably, or definitely not this year, but he has an all-star gear in him and he's amazing.
Think of how good the Knicks were too, and how far they pushed in the playoffs, and the fact that the Pistons had them on the brink. They legitimately had them in a very difficult position late in that series, and definitely could have gone back to MSG for a Game 7, and who knows what happens there. I mean, they were dominant in MSG during the year and into the playoffs. So, I mean, you had Malik Beasley, who knows what he was doing out there. And I do worry about him going out the door a little bit, because it did feel like he was a big part of their swagger and culture and just the whole turnaround they had. And I don't know if you can necessarily replicate all that with a bunch of the guys they brought in, but I think you can replicate the productivity of him among a couple of different guys, including Karis LeVert, who I think is a decent option at trying to replace all the stuff that he did there. So obviously he couldn't come back. So I think they did good enough getting him out of there. But I'll have you do this last thing here. I mentioned that 5-team sandwich that I'm looking at here that could all legitimately have like the same record, I think, in Milwaukee, whose roster I don't like at all. They tried to put something together here alongside Giannis, but I mean, what are they cap hit wise? What are they paying for Lillard's release and Turner? Like 50 million? Like, I don't know if they're actually going to get that kind of value out of him. Then you got Miami, who was pretty bad late last year, but they're healthy among these teams. Like, that's an advantage. Indy, who knows without Halliburton? Boston, who knows without Tatum? And then I'll throw Philly in there, even though they were awful last season. Could be awful again if health doesn't go their way. I went Miami. Again, I'm just giving them the benefit of the doubt there on health.
I think they'll be good. I think Miami will be good. Yeah.
Milwaukee, Indy, Boston, Philly.
Yeah.
I have Boston at 9 right now in the East.
Yeah, I have Boston at 12.
Interesting. All right. So what's your ranking? Let's say you had Detroit 5th. What's your 6 through 12 right now?
Miami. I'll just say Philadelphia because I don't know. I'm just saying Philadelphia.
It's so hard to, but yeah, I get it.
I am a Toronto Raptors believer. I think they will be pretty good this year. So I have them at 8, and then I have Bucks 9, Bulls 10, Pacers 11, and Pacers can probably there's a world where the Pacers finish 9th above Bucks and Bulls, I think, but I'll just have them 11 for now, and then I have Celtics 12.
Wow.
Yeah, it's tough.
It's bold. It's definitely possible though. And again, I don't know with Philly. Like, is Embiid going to start the year? Is George ready to go?
No, he's not.
For any stretch. Like, yeah. And when you're already probably saying no on both those guys,
yeah,
it's tough sledding. Because I think what's more disruptive there than anything else, and I like their young talent. Like, there's just a lot of guys you look there, including Edgecombe coming in and Janai Broom, who I think is going to give them some good minutes. There's so much to like about that roster outside of the 2 stars who can't get on the court. So they could, if everything goes right, they could be like 3. Like, that's definitely in play if everything goes right, but it's so unlikely that it's going to. So they're so hard to place. I had them 2 going in the last year, which obviously did not.
That didn't happen.
So I mean, I'm just gonna put them down at like 10 and just feel good about that and know that it could go lower if everything goes wrong.
Fair.
So I like the young guys though. Maxey, Edgecombe, even some guys that people, McCain was great. Like Justin Edwards, Adam Bona, like those guys gave them good minutes last year. Yabusele was there playing great. He goes out the door, obviously, but like they made the most of some younger guys' seasons last year while everyone was hurt. But the in and out nature of their lineup, they probably played like 100 different starting lineups last year. That's so hard to work with throughout the course of a year. But you like Toronto? I was interested in them, but I feel like they have 5 good players, a lot of guys who need the ball in their hands, and I don't know how they're going to shake that out. And again, obviously, it sounds like they tried to trade Barrett and shake that up a little bit, but they're going into the year with that Barrett, Ingram, Barnes thing.
Well, hey, if I had the 9th highest payroll in the league and I thought that Derek White was available, I too would try to trade RJ Barrett. That's like that, I don't think that says more about Derek White than it does about RJ Barrett. But I really like Brandon Ingram. I am the last person to like what he has to offer, but I do, and I think Scotty Barnes has like several more leaps in him. And those two, I actually think, can work together and have a pretty interesting two-man game. I like Emmanuel Quickly, who's an established outside shooter, just needs to stay healthy. I think Jakob Poeltl is like league average two-way center. I know what I'm getting from him every single night, and I like what I'm getting, and I know his limitations, and I'm okay with them. And I thought Barrett made strides as a playmaker last year that I never thought he would in a million years. And so combining just having a bunch of guys who can play with the ball is kind of how I look at it, as opposed to they need the ball in their hands. And we'll see. Maybe I'm wrong. For sure, that's possible. It could be a disaster.
Their defense was great down the stretch too. Them in Portland quietly had awesome finishes, and like you said, it's always tricky with like that last quarter of the year when teams are tanking and doing who knows what. But they had strong finishes to the year. Yeah,
Toronto's defense was second after the All-Star break, which we'll see. I don't know how real that was, but
Quentin Grimes in Philly too. Good point.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. I think that this is the type of team that can be like average on both sides of the ball, maybe a little better than average on both sides. And in the East, that's if you get to play the Nets and the Hornets and the Wizards and the Bulls, and I think the Bucks will be like bad. Like that's and the Celtics. Like I think like there's a lot of like really questionable teams, and a team like the Raptors will be competent enough to take care of business more times than not.
Well, I'm a little higher on the Celtics than you. I do appreciate the perspective though, because I think again a lot of people are just convincing themselves that they're gonna figure this thing out. And when you look at the roster, it is a lot of answers or a lot of questions that don't necessarily have answers right now. So there's definitely a downside to the season that is bleak, and like you said, 12 is in play. So I appreciate the perspective. Last thing, who do you got winning the East right now?
I'm going Magic.
Wow. So you're actually going down that road. I got to see the offense first. I actually want to see how it looks, how it comes together. I know that Zach has said it 100 times, right? They haven't been top, or they've been bottom half of the league since like 2012 or something on that end.
Yep.
So I need to actually see it come together before I pick them. I'm gonna go Knicks for now. I like the new coach. I like the bump they might get from that. I like the bench pieces they added. There's some good depth here. Even I want to see their younger guys play this year and just see what they have there. Just try some stuff out during the year to give them some options later on. Like I didn't love them firing Tibbs when they did it, but now that I see who the coach is and the optionality they have here, and them just knowing that they can go deep in the East after doing what they did last year, I like what they got there. So
yeah.
The defense is still a question, though, at the point of attack, and I don't know how they're going to figure that out. Maybe Mitchell Robinson. So it's definitely wide open. Thank you, Michael Pina. Been trying to get you on here for a minute. Appreciate you making it work here, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your summer, man. Always enjoy your work. Check it out at theringer.com. And, of course, find him over at Blue Sky on at Michael V. Pina.
Yes, sir.
All right, and we will be back probably next week. I don't think we'll have another show this week necessarily here. We talked about the Connecticut Sun moving to Boston potentially here yesterday on the show, which I think is still in play here with that offer that they got from Stephen Pegg-Lucas. So we got Gary Washburn on talking about that yesterday. Check that out. Check out all the Pats coverage that will be rolling out as we speak here over on Patriots Press Pass into the afternoon. And Bruins Ringside for all your Bruins coverage here. Subscribe Celtics All Access, CLNS Media. And we will talk to you whenever news breaks. Turn on those notifications if anything ends up happening this week. And if not, we'll talk to you next week. Peace.
No one's sneaking a vegan brownie by me, I'll tell you that.
Okay, you know what, John? We're going to do it.
You have to feel that way too, Bobby.
I have to feel that way. Let's
Yeah.
slide Al over and make Luke your first center.
Bobby, we gave you Luke hour early. We're not going to end this on a damn conversation about Luke